Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another show. It is day 11 of our 32 and 31, and tonight we're covering the Detroit Lions. The Lions, everybody. I'm excited for this one. Great team, had some success last year, and I'm excited to get into these Lions. I said that they would be a changed team. Some people tried to say that I was wrong. I was crazy. And then they came, they showed out, and they proved it. So let's get into these Lions tonight. Before I do that, though, I need to address a couple of things because there's a couple of Denver Broncos fans who are mad at or upset or in their feelings, really emotional right now because I said a couple of things in regards to their team. And I said it with no disrespect. I basically had said that the Denver Broncos are rebuilding, which they are, and how they're going to struggle this next season. And people really got mad at me about that. And that's fine. I get it. You guys get mad at the truth all the time. So what makes any different when it comes to me? I get it. I understand. You got to step up for your team and you got to fight with somebody because you want to be right. They're going through a rebuild. Russell Wilson's gone. You don't know who your quarterback's going to be. It's going to be a whole new offensive scheme. Don't be mad at me. Be mad that the only solid win that Jarrett Stidham got for your team was against Easton Stick. Be mad at that man. Be mad at Sean Payton for treating Russell Wilson like shit. Now back to the regular scheduled programming. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Shout out to you guys for rocking with us tonight. Much love to the Wrench Gang. Much love to the family, all the listeners, all the watchers. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I got the hoodie on tonight. They made me bring out the hoodie. It was a hoodie night. Make sure you guys hit that like, that thumbs up, and of course make sure you do subscribe, click that bell, turn on your notifications so you don't miss a stream. All right, let's get into these Lions, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, there's obviously not much that I can say in regards to these Lions that is bad, right? I mean, there's a lot of pros and obviously there's some cons, but there's way more of those pros than cons. So let's go ahead and as I screw up my screen there, let's go ahead and get into these guys. Shout out to you, Tyrone. What up, yo? What's going on with you? Forest Green in the house. The usual suspects in the building. Shout out to Daniel. What up, man? All right. Now, as far as the question of the day, it's going to be, will the Lions get to the Super Bowl this next season? Obviously, if you do end up watching the stream later, make sure you drop that comment in the chat. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know what you think. Do you think they have a solid chance, or do you think Dan Campbell's going to ruin it? You know, let me know. All right. I want to first off get into the schedule because I think this is very important. We're going to go back to last year, right? We're going to go back to the past, and then we're going to get into the future. This was the one year where I really think that Jared Goff meant business. And I said it back in 22. I told everybody that this Lions team would be a completely different team. I seen it in his eyes. I seen it when they played against Green Bay, and Goff was just a different man when he left out on that field. And coming into the 23 season, we seen that he was exceptional. He was focused. He was great. And then there was some moments where you kind of question, like, what the hell happened? You had a great win against Kansas City. You started off strong. Week 1, you surprised the world, everybody watching. Get the close 1-point victory, 21-21 in Kansas City. Then you take a loss. You take a loss to Seattle in overtime, 37-31. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a hell of a game. But, you know, the defense just gave up way too many points to the Seahawks, and then obviously you weren't able to keep up. And some would say it was controversial as well, but hey, you guys lost. But then you took the win against the Falcons, 20-6. You beat Green Bay 34-20. You mopped the Panthers 42-24. Beat Tampa Bay 20-6. Lost to Baltimore in a very, very defensive battle for the Ravens. They completely handled this team. They won 38-6, and then obviously came back against the Raiders 26-14. So I mean, even with the two losses there, this is a start that you want to see. This is a start that you obviously are okay with, right? Yeah, you lost to the Seahawks, you lost to the Ravens, but you're okay with this because you got such a great chemistry built up. You guys are doing things. You only got 2 losses in your week 8, right? Then the bye week comes. You have another close game with, the Chargers 41-38, Goff and Herbert going at it. Then they beat the Bears 31-26. You come back to Green Bay, you take a loss 29-22. You then go on and beat the Saints 33-28. Then you get beat by the Bears 28-13. And at some point later on in the season, things start getting a little weird, right? People start getting tired. Obviously, you got some injuries. Dan Campbell coaching and making some decisions that may or may not be good, right? Because he's going with his gut, which we'll get into that later. But then you come back against Denver, right? You beat Denver 42-17. You beat Minnesota 30-24. You lose to Dallas, and like I said the other night, this is one of the most controversial games from this season, without a doubt. It could have went either way, but obviously you lose to Dallas 20-19, and then you come back and you beat Minnesota 30-20. Now, we then get into the postseason, right? Get back into the postseason. You take a win against the Rams, 1-point game, 24-23. Back to Dan Campbell, making things very, very interesting and probably more hard than what it could have been. And then Tampa Bay, right? You beat them 31-23. You guys are well into the postseason. Now you're against the 49ers, right? This is for all the marbles. And then we're sitting there, we're streaming this game. We're having a good time. Everybody's crazy. And then you lose your chance, your trip to the most important game that you guys would have ever been in by a field goal, 34-31. And that's not to discredit Brock Purdy and this 49ers defense and this 49ers offense. But a side of me always tells me that the Lions should have won. And we'll get into why. Shout out to Rodney. What up, yo? What's going on with you, Tyrone, in the building? Reverend in the house. What up, Reverend? Shout out to you, bro. Reverend Nelson in the house. All right. So, yeah, you get into, the loss with the 49ers, and I think this was one of the most significant games that highlighted Dan Campbell and his coaching. And I appreciate Dan Campbell. I enjoy what Dan Campbell displays out on that field with the energy, the guts, the heart, the grit, the determination, all those things that you want to see in a coach. Dan Campbell displays it. The ability to go for it when all the chips are on the table and nobody else would do it. And sometimes it worked. And then sometimes it's like, well, what the fuck's going on? And that's the reality of it. Because at the end of the day, Dan Campbell put the team in a few situations that definitely raised some eyebrows, but there was more good than bad, right? There was more good than bad. And unfortunately, shout out to you. Unfortunately, we may see some of this again next season. We're going to break it down. We're going to get to the schedule. We're going to do our predictions and all that good stuff. But before we do that, I think it's very important that we highlight the issues of that, just that specifically. Because when you have a coach that's willing to be gutsy, you have a coach that's willing to go out there and put it all on the line, there are going to be significant moments in this game where I would think as a player, as someone who put it all on the field, you're sitting there scratching your head and you're like, Coach, maybe we shouldn't do that. Or maybe we should do this. And, it's obviously you're probably not going to voice your concern in that situation because he's the coach. He's got to make that decision and he's got to live by it and die by it. But I can only imagine as someone who put so much work into the game, Jared Goff, the feeling of, hey, I was able to keep us in this game, and now the coach is making these kind of decisions to maybe cost us. And it's tough to think about because when I think about Dan, I think about what he's done for the Lions organization. I think about how he's changed things around. I think about how the Lions now is probably one of the most talked about teams and more than they've ever been talked about, which is all good. But we know this game is all about sealing the deal. This game is all about the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the day. And you cost this team in the end. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Because when we get into the stats here, ladies and gentlemen, when we get into the stats, Jared Goff, I would say, probably had the best, if not the second best, year in his career. He was 407 of 605, 67% completion percentage. He had 4,575 yards. His average was 7.6. Long of 70. He had 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He had 30 sacks. But if we go back and we contrast that with numbers back in 2018, it's very close to beating his best year. And you're talking about someone who has basically moved on, kind of had a few slow years, came into Detroit, basically struggled the first year, figured things out the second year, went home, got back into his book, focused, studied, came back, and then took this team in the best direction that anyone could have in this franchise. Without a doubt, you got to give that man a round of applause. You got to give that man a round of applause, without a doubt, because I didn't expect it. I seen hints and I seen things that obviously the team was changing, and I did believe that the Lions would be a contender, but I didn't expect the Lions to ball out the way that they did, and I didn't expect them to ball out at the level that they did. So, next after that, obviously from the quarterback situation, we know they're great there. But then we get into the rushing, and I think the Lions had probably one of the best duos of running backs in the league. You've got Montgomery and Gibbs, and both had almost an equal amount of touches on the ball and almost an equal amount of yards, and the production was just amazing out of both of these guys. Montgomery gives you 219 carries, 1,015 yards, average 4.6, long with 75, 13 touchdowns. Gibbs had 182 carries, 945 yards, average 5.2, long was 36. He had 10 touchdowns. You got Reynolds in the mix there, 179 yards. He even got a touchdown. It was beautiful. The running scheme that was put together for this Lions team last year was absolutely phenomenal. I would love to see it again next year. I really would. Obviously, we know that Gibbs had an injury, so hopefully he'll be fine. But just to look at that and say, wow, it's very rare that you get a combination of two running backs that are so skilled that they can use them almost interchangeably, and these guys go out there and ball out the way that they do. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Then we get into the receiving. And I think this is probably one of the best things that I really, really enjoy looking at these stats is how the scheme actually pulled the whole wide receiver group together. Nobody was really favored. There was a mix. Everybody touched the ball. St. Brown obviously did his thing. He was 119 of 164. He had 1,515 yards, 10 touchdowns, along with 70. He averaged 12.7. Do you know how ridiculous that is? Averaged 12.7. Laporta, absolutely phenomenal. 86 receptions, 120 targets. He had 889 yards. He averaged 10.3. He had 10 touchdowns. Reynolds was 40 of 64, 608 yards. He averaged 15 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Absolutely phenomenal from an offensive standpoint. And then as we move down to the defense, Anzalone had 3 sacks, 129. Campbell had 2 sacks, 95. Hutchinson had 11 and a half. Listen, when I tell you this team was clicking on all cylinders, and I'm not saying they were completely perfect, but this was the best Lions team that we probably had seen in a long time last season. And it's wild to me, and it's so surreal because I remember watching Matt Stafford and saying to myself, damn, when is this team going to really get it together? When are they going to make changes so that this team can actually do something and be competitive? Because obviously some of you remember and some of you don't, but I remember the Barry Sanders days. I remember watching those runs. I remember how electric this team could be. And obviously they'd still take some losses, but the competitiveness of this team was different even back then. And so we get into now. We get into the upcoming season and what we should expect from these Lions. Well, you're starting off with the Rams, right? And we've been talking about Matt Stafford and how he's, getting to that point of potentially losing a step. But he's still got a phenomenal arm. He's still going to go out there and compete. I do think this will be a very, very strong week 1. They're basically, the height and the hype around this game is going to be huge. Matt Stafford coming from the Rams, right? You got Jared Goff coming from the Rams. Matt Stafford coming from the Lions. This is one of those games where you sit back and you're like, it's going down. Sunday night football, you can't beat it. Week 1, this is going to be amazing. This could be a complete dogfight, without a doubt. And I could see this going down to the wire, potentially a field goal victory. But from a defensive standpoint, I think I got to give it to the Lions in this one. I think they're coming out for blood. I think this year will be very interesting, just like last year was. And I don't think they're going to lose week 1. I think they're coming refreshed. Jared Goff's going to come in hot. And it's going to be very tough to stop Gibbs as long as he's healthy, stop that running game. And Laporta and those guys, it's going to be very tough for the Rams. But we'll see. I'll take the Lions in week 1. Week 2 against Baker Mayfield and company. I like Baker Mayfield. I like the Buccaneers. We've been talking about them off and on as far as various games and, how they've been able to win in the most craziest moments. Baker Mayfield coming out of nowhere, able to drop bombs and just put the ball right in the bucket in certain scenarios and, keep the team not only ahead, but, in a way that allows the defense to make a big play and keep the momentum. And that's one thing that Baker Mayfield has been able to do with this team for the most part. So this could be another good game, right? Week 2. And this may be one of those games where you're sitting there like, well, wow, Tampa Bay came out with the victory. Now, do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But this could be one of those 50-50 games because Baker Mayfield's got a lot to prove as well. So I'm going to take that, 50-50 on that one. Week 3, Lions Cardinals. Kyler Murray, the big question mark, right? When is he going to get over the issues that he's been having? When is he going to get over the problems that we've noticed that he's had over the years? And I think this could be that year. The Cardinals may be a team that actually shows up this year. Now you've got a problem. So this could be another 50-50. After that, you've got the Seattle Seahawks, right? They've been showing up. They've been playing some good ball as well. Obviously, we know what happened last year. It could repeat. It could repeat. I think these first 4 games are definitely going to bring out the best of the Lions, and we'll know right away if Goff and company are serious. We'll know right away if Goff and company can maintain that energy and that focus that they had last year. And we'll see what kind of game plan that, these Lions have obviously put into place up to that point. And hopefully they can ride into week 5 with, some good momentum. Now, obviously week 5 is going to be the bye week. And then this is where, things start getting a little serious, right? You've got Dallas. Now, depending on how Dak Prescott's playing and depending on how that defense is going, this could be payback. This could be that revenge game. We've been talking about what happened last year and how that left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. This could be a huge week 6 game for both sides because there's some bad blood there. It could turn out to be a defensive battle. We'll have to see how that one goes. I'm 50-50 there. As far as Minnesota, Darnold, McCarthy, some things to figure out as far as quarterback situation. Obviously, we know that Vikings are kind of a wild card coming into this season because of the chemistry and the changes and things like that. So I'm probably going to ride with the Lions on this one. Tennessee, Will Levis, I like the guy. He's going through, some changes as far as with his team as well. New team, new chemistry, whole new plan for him. I'm going to roll with the Lions there. I do think that Green Bay is going to be a good test. Once again, Jordan Love, he means business. Great chemistry on his side with his wide receivers. Good running game, obviously. Defense stepping up. I mean, both these teams made it to the playoffs. So, yeah, this could be another good one. That's a 50-50 for me. As far as Houston, the Texans, right? C.J. Stroud, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. Yeah. Lions are looking at some really, really good football for sure. After that, you got the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, who, he's, to me, not elite yet. He's superstar level, but not elite. But he has his moments, and he has those games where he really just displays that amazing talent. And coming into, week 11 against the Lions, I'm sure he'll be able to prove that as long as he can stay healthy. But the defense for the Jags can definitely put some hurting on Jared Goff there as well. So it's a lot of these are a mixed bag. Getting into the Colts, Anthony Richardson's back. Hopefully, the injury doesn't keep him back from being able to play the way that he needs to. But that's another one. Now, obviously, you get into the Bears, right? Caleb Williams. He has such a great offense right now. The real question is, what the hell is he going to do, though? Right? Is Caleb Williams going to be that individual who can step right into the role and take the Bears to the promised land? Probably not. But we are expecting him to do well. So, these could be some challenging games depending on if the quarterbacks can step up. And I think Caleb Williams is going to be tested for sure in a game like this. But I will lean, obviously, more towards the Lions just because of the experience. And obviously getting into these later weeks, that's where the Lions really, really are going to have to step up for sure. Then you got Green Bay again, right, in which they may split. But it is, Thursday night primetime game, so this could be very interesting for sure. All the lights, all the eyes are on both teams. Then after that, they got the Bills. Afternoon game, 4:25, Sundays, December 15th. This very well, could be a banger for sure. Bills having, their issues as far as different players coming in, chemistry building. Hopefully the defense doesn't suffer any significant injuries again. There's a lot that we'll have to address, obviously, when we do our predictions coming into week 15 and all that kind of stuff. You guys know how we do. But just looking from it on paper, I mean, if I have to choose a team that's better, it would be the Lions in this game. And that's because we really don't have a true sample as far as how the Bills are going to react to the next season yet. Then, of course, they'll face the Bears again. So we'll see how that goes. And then the big one. End of the season, you've got the 49ers, Monday Night Football. This one's going to be a heavy hitter for sure. There's a couple of games where it's bad blood. Obviously the Dallas game, Green Bay, Bills is going to be very good. But I do think this San Francisco game is going to be way, way at the top as far as all the hype coming into next season. Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Debo, hell of an offense, strong offensive line. And then you get into the defense, when these guys are playing at not even 100%, but if they're playing at 90%, San Francisco is going to give you some solid problems. And, this very well is most likely going to be one of those games that determines seeding and things like that. So this could be crazy for sure. This is a 50-50 for me for obvious reasons. There is no possible way anyone could properly give a prediction on this, specifically because we just don't have an idea as far as both teams up until that point. Obviously, 16's done. We look at everything that's happened and what's going on, who's still active, who's injured, who's not, and we'll break this down like we always do. But for right now, that's another 50-50. Minnesota end of the year, I'd probably give that to the Lions, though. And then as far as your preseason, right, you're looking at the Giants, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh. New York, Kansas City, and then Pittsburgh for the preseason. Shout out to you, Reverend. Ernie Brown, what up, yo? Definitely an exciting season. Definitely exciting season. Some of these games are 100% going to be wild. 49ers, Bills. I mean, even the Bears, right? Bears, Caleb Williams, there's a lot riding on that Bears team and the talent over there. So without a doubt, Richardson being back, depending on how his season's going, that could be huge. Jags for sure. Texans, Dallas, Rams. Yeah, I mean, there's a good 5-6 games that is going to have some huge significance for sure. For sure. And then obviously, last but not least, we're going to get into the depth chart. But before we do, I look at this schedule here and I see a true challenge for this Lions team. And if they're able to not only get to the postseason, but if they're able to stay healthy, if they're able to get through the hard moments, if Dan Campbell is able to keep his feelings intact, I could definitely see where, they're going to be a tough team, a ready team, and they may have a true shot at Super Bowl if they can get through these teams and actually show some dominance. Because I think at the end, that is what's really going to get them across and what's really going to boil down to how effective this team is going to be. If they can be dominant and get through these teams and let everybody know that they mean business, when it comes to the postseason, they could very well get another shot at it and potentially head to the Super Bowl, which would be wild. It would be wild. Shout out to you, Joyce. What up, yo? What's going on with you tonight? Joyce B in the house. So yeah, and as far as your depth chart, right, we'll get to that. Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, Nate Sudfeld for your quarterbacks. Running backs, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Craig Riddles. For your wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Maurice Alexander, Jamison Williams, Antoine Green, Tom Kennedy, Khalif Raymond, Traquan Smith, and Doris Fontaine. Tight end, Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, and James Mitchell. And then for your offensive line, you got your left tackle, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, Frank Ragnow, Kevin Zeitler, and Penei Sewell as your right tackle. Let me hop into the chat before we get to the defense. Ernie says Lions were a surprise last season, but now we have tape. It will be interesting to see if the Lions get over the hump. That's a city that could appreciate a championship, and the coach gets out of his feelings. Listen, I remember last year we had so much fun with these Lions and streaming these games. And there was a couple of times, and some of you probably remember this, but there was a couple of times where I was sitting there just shaking my head at Dan Campbell. I just couldn't believe some of the decisions that he was making. And, you know, obviously we talk about the field goal situation where he just kept, you know, kept going for it, you know, and you get the flag and you go for it again. You get the flag and you go for it again. And it's like you have to make something has to click in your head to tell you, well, they've given me 2 chances here. Let me play the safe route. They've given me 3 chances here. Let me go ahead and play the safe route. And he's just like, nope, we're going to do it my way. And I think at that moment, like, my stomach just sank because I'm like, don't you see what's going on here? They've given you another chance and you're not taking it. And, you know, there's plenty of other moments. But when you, like I said, I appreciate Dan Campbell. I respect his coaching ability. I respect what he's done for this team. He's a hell of an individual. But these are the moments that will make you question, okay, if you do get to a Super Bowl, are you going to make these irrational choices, these irrational decisions when it matters the most? And that's a big question. That's a real question as well. That's not, you know, just some shit that we're coming up with. It's a real question. Shout out to you, Joyce, if that was you. But us fans trust Dan Gamble. Listen, y'all fans was sitting there while we were streaming these games with biting off your fingernails because of Dan Gamble. And then when it didn't pay off, all I got was crying emojis, mad emojis, people cussing in the stream, spazzing out. That is what we experienced when it didn't work out. And when it did work out, we was obviously going all crazy and having a good time. But, you know, and that's why I'm not beating up on Dan Gamble. I just think it's something that he needs to work on and just dial in, right? Dial into that. I'm not saying change everything about you because, yes, there were some situations where you making that irrational decision and it worked. But then there were some significant moments where you should have dialed back. And I think he knew it. I think when those moments happened, you looked at his face. If it didn't go well, he in his head he was like, damn, I should have did this. Or I should have did that. You can tell. You see it in his face when it happens. So, yeah, you take the good with the bad and you move forward from it and you learn from it. And I think he did. I think he learned a lot about himself last year. I think he learned that, hey, maybe I can't always go the gut route. But when it works, it works. And when it doesn't, it doesn't. And like I said, I do appreciate what he's done with this team, what he's done with this franchise and for the people in Detroit. And I hope that he continue to have success. I just hope he doesn't end up making a crazy mistake or make a rash decision and actually use his IQ and smarts when it comes to when he has to play chess and not checkers. That's what I think. Shout out to Matt. What up, yo? What's going on with you? His Lions are led by a madman. But, man, he sure know how to build a team up. For sure. Listen, it's been all good in tonight's stream. There's really been no cons. When you look at everything that the Lions have, not just even from, the defensive standpoint, but just so many weapons at offense. Jared Goff was probably in the best position that any quarterback could have been in last year. He could have got to the Super Bowl. In fact, he was 3 points away. So for him to get that far and for this team to get that far, they did almost everything right. And I can't harp on that. I can't fight with it, because the reality is this: at the end of the day, they're in a great position to do it again this year, but even better. But just like Ernie said, there's tape now, right? You got tape on Gibbs. You got a little more tape on Montgomery. St. Brown, obviously we know, things are going to change a little bit, because of the injuries. Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond. These individuals coming in, there's some changes, but then there's also, okay, we have tape. And so now we know how to game plan for these individuals now. Now we know who we have to lock up a little bit more so that we can slow down the momentum and slow down this offense. Now we know we got to put 2 people on Sam Laporta instead of 1. Sam Laporta's a beast, yo. It's great. I think the Lions have put themselves in a good position to be contenders. As long as everyone stays healthy, as long as everyone plays their game, and as long as Dan Campbell can keep that locker room tight-knit and keep these guys focused, they will end up back in the postseason. And at that point, he's just going to have to figure out how to get this team over that hump. Because I'll tell you this, to be almost there and you lose by 3, that's sitting in your heart, that's sitting in your chest, and that's in the back of your mind coming into that next season for sure. Without a doubt. As for the poll, shout out to you guys for voting. Will the Lions get to the Super Bowl next season? 53% of you has said yes. And I think there's a strong chance they do. You've got the personnel, veteran quarterback, running backs, solid team. Wide receiver group is solid. Offensive line, sure, they need to make some adjustments. Make sure that Jared's safe back there so he doesn't get as many sacks. Obviously, you work on that. Defense, Hutchinson he's been absolutely phenomenal. And now you just need, someone else to step up maybe a little bit more, help him out so he doesn't have to do it all. You've got a solid team. You got a team that can get the job done. Can they seal the deal at the end? That's going to be the question. It's going to be the question. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, your Detroit Lions. I think they're going to do great. I'm excited to see what they do. We are on day 11. We're almost halfway done with our 32 and 31, covering all 32 teams in 31 days. We're doing this every night, 8 p.m. or even 7:30 sometimes because got the kids and stuff, doing all kinds of stuff. But yeah, every night, 8 p.m., we cover a different team. We're covering all 32. So make sure you guys lock it in. Matt says Sam Laporta is a very talented individual. He can do it all. Also, on a side note, how many offensive linemen are getting touchdowns this season? Lions keeping people on their toes. Exciting offense. That is a fact. That is a fact. Shout out to Joyce B. Says, I'm a true fan. I said no next season. It's a three-peat for Chiefs. Wow. That's interesting, Joyce. Okay. I mean, we haven't got to the Chiefs yet. We're going to get there soon. There's a lot. There's a lot about that team that we got to talk about. You could say that Patrick Mahomes probably had his worst year with, a specific group of guys and found a way to make it work. Now, obviously, you could say, well, Scantling Valdez Scantling's not that bad, and Watson's not that bad, and Gray's pretty decent. Obviously, you got Kelsey, you're Patrick Mahomes, you've got Rice, Pacheco. That's a solid group of individuals. So when people say that it was a bad team and Patrick Mahomes went out there and handled business, that's a pretty solid damn team. And when those guys step out on the field, you see it. Pacheco is a damn wall. How do you stop a wall running towards you? It's a very good question. Shout out to Shantae. What up, yo? What's going on with you? Reverend says, one of the things I like about their schedule is that they will have quality checks throughout the regular season, which will put them in the best possible position for the postseason, pending response. Yeah, I agree. I think because, listen, that's what makes you strong. That's what makes you tough. Having an easy schedule doesn't make you tough. Having an easy schedule, especially down the stretch, doesn't give you any true resolve. So you need to be tested. You need to have those hard-fought games in the beginning of the season and get those out the way. So, yeah, you can have all right, my week 8 through week 11 is a little less challenging. But then let's get back to it and beat the snot out these teams and then go into the postseason with the momentum, go into the postseason with, these guys having some fear. And I think the tough games is what really develops a team character at the end of the day. Because if you don't have that, you're not building up anything that is looked at as strong. You're not building up anything that's looked at as steady. So I agree. I think having the schedule the way they do, and whoever planned the schedule did a hell of a job. Like I said, you got the Rams week 1. That's going to be a hell of a game for sure. But Baker and the Buccaneers, they're no team to sleep on. Kyler Murray coming back this year. We know he had the injury problem. He's got some new help now. So the Cardinals could do something. I'm not going to hate on the Seahawks, but I don't know what they really got for the Lions this year, considering all the changes over there. But the Seahawks are known as surprise. So once again, it could be a very, very interesting start, or a very interesting 4 weeks to the start of the season. Obviously, they get the bye for week 5, and then you come right back. You got Dallas, the Vikings, Titans, Green Bay. So yeah, I mean, this is good stuff. This is very good stuff. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it for sure. Matt says Lions defense will be better this season. That being said, Lions are a force in this league. I pray they stay healthy. That's a fact. We'll leave it at this, and then we'll get up out of here. The best thing that I think the Lions have coming into next season is Dan Campbell. He is most likely the most aggressive coach from a point of my casket. Dan Campbell is the most aggressive coach by far in the league. And when you have someone like that who's willing to put it all on the line, when you have someone like that who's willing to take this team and put them on his shoulders and do the things that another coach wouldn't do, call the things that another coach wouldn't call, you've got someone who is going to take their team to different heights. You got someone who's going to take their team to a different level. And I think that's exactly what these Lions needed. Shout out to you, Matt. So, yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 8 p.m. Make sure you guys lock it in. Much love to the Wrench Gang. Much love to the family, all the listeners, all the watchers. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Ric Flair, where you at? You guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. 8 p.m. sharp. Make sure you're here. You guys have a good night.